Welcome back, everyone, to the next episode of the Mach 1 Method podcast. Coach Jason here.
Coach RJ.
Coach Patrick.
We are kicking off season 2. No better way than to talk about barbell training. Our favorite, our bread and butter, Mach 1 barbell for a reason. So we are going to be chatting to you guys and with one another about the differences between Olympic lifting and powerlifting. Which one should you choose? What are the real differences? So RJ, want to kick us off here?
So I personally don't have too much experience with powerlifting, so I'll comment a little bit more about the Olympic lifting. For those who don't know, Olympic lifting consists of two lifts. We have the snatch, so we have a wider grip. So wider grip straight overhead. And then you have the clean, which is a little closer to the jerk, which is either a split or feet out wide. So in the competitive nature of it, you try to go as heavy as you can between the two lifts. There's a winner for the snatch, there's a winner for the clean and jerk, and then there's a winner of the combined lift total. These are usually at the bigger meets. It's pretty simple. It's two lifts, and you try to go as heavy as you can. That's Olympic lifting.
Just simply pick things up and put them down.
And then the difference is, from a competitive standpoint, your powerlifting is your squat, your bench press, and your deadlift. Your powerlifting movements, again, the squat, bench, and deadlift, that's going to train what we call absolute strength. And Olympic lifting is going to, the snatch and the clean and jerk, those are training power. So, Pat, you want to chat about what the difference between strength and power are?
Ooh, on the contrary. So I would say power is a combination of strength and speed, right? Where absolute strength is about how much weight we can actually move units of mass. So total work put in, and doesn't necessarily have so much of a speed factor to it as long as it's going in an opposing direction of gravity, right? In a competitive environment, there is a little bit nuance in the technique of, like, once the bar goes up, it can't come back down and go back up. Yeah. But if you're talking about absolute strength in training, like, as long as it goes from the ground or the rack from the down position and then back up, a lift is a lift, and that's how we can represent absolute strength in that regard. Yeah. Do you have to train powerlifting to become strong, and do you have to train Olympic lifting to become powerful? Absolutely not. There's a lot of different variations. These are just tools that we use with our athletes. But in addition, if you're looking to get good at a sport, you need to train the skill of the sport, right? So if you're looking to get better at Olympic lifting, you better be training your power and doing snatch, clean, and jerk respectively. If you're looking to get strong in powerlifting, you should be doing the bench, squat, and deadlift as well.
But I think if your goal is
Wrong.
I'll just see myself out. No, but I think if you want to get stronger, if that's your ultimate goal, like, powerlifting, in my opinion, is the best modality to train. Whether you have ambitions of competition or not, if your goal is to get stronger, a powerlifting style training program is the best way to do that. If you're they move the most weight, exactly.
It's right there.
And same thing with Olympic lifting. If your goal is to build more power and be faster and more explosive, Olympic lifting should 100% be a part of your routine. It's why we incorporate Olympic lifting with both our youth athletes and even some of our adult population, is because when we want a desired outcome, those are the best lifts that you're going to get.
Yeah, so I would say that all Olympic lifters should do some sort of powerlifting as well, right? Sure. So whether they're squatting and deadlifting, maybe instead of bench pressing, they're overhead pressing, but they're still doing some sort of press, squat, and pull. Like, that's foundational strength. It's going to get them to have absolute strength increase. So when we're talking about force, which is mass times acceleration, they're going to be able to take that mass, apply speed to it, have a higher force output, and then in turn hit PRs on the platform in their respective sports, right? And then the same thing with powerlifters. If you throw a sprinkle of Olympic lifting in there and they have better speed, they have better like neural drive, they're going to be able to recruit more power on each rep. They're going to be able to use that same force equation, add some acceleration, they'll be able to move some mass for the same amount of speed, right? So that is beneficial in all aspects if you sprinkle both sides. But if you're just getting started in the gym, both look appealing, both are exciting. I would say powerlifting is pretty foundational. It's, when you think of the gym, it's the big three:
Yeah.
bench, squat, and the deadlift. Like, I think get good at those, and then we can razzle dazzle some technique and add some flexibility, mobility, stability, all those different assets you see in the Olympic lifts, and then we can train that as a skill as well.
That's kind of where I was going to go. Like, I think like the low barrier to entry is probably powerlifting because of the raw nature. Like, you just sit and stand up, you push, and we're pulling a deadlift off the ground. Now, there is like nuance, and you got to work on your form and your technique and progress. But I think starting there, like you said, is like a great point. Like, you're going to get strong, you're going to build that foundational strength, and then, we can carry it over into, like a field sport athlete, right? Working on your, athletic capabilities there. Or for this topic, Olympic lifting, you need that raw strength. Like, we see some of those people come over with just, they've been in the gym for a little bit and they're like, oh, I want to try Olympic lifting. And they just have that base to work off of. And it's really good, really good to have that base. I guess the only thing might be like the technical component of the Olympic lifts that might not make it as easy. So I guess a question to you guys would be like, like for somebody new, we'll say, or maybe like your average gym goer, what is like a realistic timeline to learn each lift and just to be like, I could throw some weight around in the gym
I would
versus
say,
like a competition, like, to be competent in the gym?
I would say I'm going to use like our college athletes for like the track and field team as an example, because they have no desire to compete in Olympic lifting. They're just trying to get good at their sport, right? So I would expect them to be, let's use like good and competition ready as two separate calibers here, but I would want them to be good foundationally within the first month. I'd probably give them about 2 weeks to kind of let the kind of dots connect a little bit there, and then 2 weeks to get pretty proficient, and then we're going to start loading it after that first month.
So I kind of interpret that, like, relating it to the question is like, if you just want to be able to do the Olympic lifts to a safe and effective degree, about a month. But if you want to do them to a competition standard, that's kind of a different conversation or a different ball game.
Correct.
What would you say would be your answer for the competition standard?
I would say at Mach 1, we've had athletes compete in like a somewhat readiness scale 3 to 6 months from their first session. However, I would probably say it's pretty unanimous. No one feels 100% ready getting on the platform for the first time, so it's kind of arbitrary. But from a coach's eye, I feel safe sending an athlete out there within 3 to 6 months of guided, coached practice session.
It's one of those things where, personally, I started with powerlifting. And after learning the technique, the competition standards, the commands of everything, I didn't do my first powerlifting competition until a year into powerlifting training. So I trained for a year and then I competed. But at this point, even though I don't really train powerlifting primarily, I'd feel ready to train powerlift or compete in powerlifting at any point. Whereas with Olympic lifting, although I've been, with relative consistency training Olympic lifting for 7 years, I feel like I'm always trying to connect more dots and get better. There's always some level of refinement and tuning up that I can implement into my technique. So as I'm still getting stronger, I'm still working on the technique. So I don't feel like there's as much of a concrete end point in the learning stages. I always feel like with Olympic lifting, there's an endless amount of learning that you do and an endless amount of refining. And not that that's like you're saying, like you mentioned it before with powerlifting. It's not like there's no technique to powerlifting, but it's just a lot simpler. And, the refinement isn't quite as often. Like there's a lot more variables that can go wrong with an Olympic lift versus a power lift from a technical standpoint.
With
Yeah.
the snatch, for example, like if you take the bar path and you just go from the ground to overhead, and you take the bar path a bench press where you bring it down to the chest and back up, they're both pretty linear, right? But to move your body around a barbell with the distance that a snatch has to travel, like you're going from a deep squat to peak extension and back down to a squat, you're bringing the bar from in front of you to slightly behind you, you have to turn it over. Like there's a lot of moving parts. And I use the fighter jet analogy where if you're traveling, at Mach speed, and after 60 miles, if you're 1 degree off your target, you miss your target by over a mile, right? So now think of that. If you're, 700 plus miles per hour, you cover 60 miles like that, right? Bring that to a scale of a snatch where you're 1 degree off, you're forward, you get a little wobble in your catch, you have a missed lift, where on a bench press, you can kind of groove that 1 degree and kind of save it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Just really quick, I was gonna say, like that relates to originally the absolute strength versus the power. That's the speed component
Yeah,
of the Olympic lift.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm on board with both of you guys. I think realistically, like going into it, it's not going to be like a 1 week turnover. I don't think that's the case.
He signed up with us at the meet, essentially, on the car ride home.
Like by 4 to 6, like if you're a beginner program, what's that? Months.
4 to 6 months.
Yeah, like by month 6, like you've got a good training block, like you've gotten a bunch of reps in, and at that point, if it is your desire to get on the platform, like you should be ready.
Yeah.
Is that the like gold standard or the case for everybody? No.
Absolutely
Some people
not.
pick it up a little quicker, some people take a little longer, and that's my point to your point is I think it is like an ongoing thing. Like even though we've been in this for years now, like every time you hit the platform is a learning experience. Like you might be forward that day, you might be backward that day. You're always fine tuning.
So, for someone who has no interest in competing but has interest in training these, what would you recommend for an individual, whether they're a beginner or an advanced or intermediate? Not necessarily being like specific, but like what characteristics of the Olympic lifts or the powerlifting movements would you say, like, oh, if you like to train like this is what I would recommend?
Yeah, I think this kind of goes hand in hand with what you were saying about your track athletes. Like,
Yeah.
you don't really need to be like competition ready, but there are variants to get the training stimulus that you want.
Yeah, I would say like strength is never a weakness, right? So if you're looking to get stronger, powerlifting, there's simplicity to it. You can load it. You can kind of follow more of a linear periodization approach with that. It's a little bit more true to itself when you look at the numbers and the program cards with that. So if your absolute goal is to get stronger, powerlifting is definitely something I would prioritize. Once you have that foundational strength, then I would say if you're looking towards power, then Olympic lifting would be the goat of that, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to do the full lifts to get good at them. There's a lot of the times with the runners and the throwers where we're doing hang power variations, or we're doing muscle snatches, or we're just doing front squats and overhead squats to work mobility, right? So it's like it really depends on building the whole athlete. And then we can take the barbell out of hand and do jumps and different plyometrics to work on that power output, which is unresisted, right? So we're really focusing on that speed strength curve on the speed side of things. But then, we throw some plates and bars in the mix and you have them jump with a bar to get it overhead. Now they're snatching. Now we're talking about huge differences in force output.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like the biggest argument online is one, the timeline to learn them. And I think confidently we could say, like, if somebody walked in, like, we could get to snatch a bar or clean a bar that day. Doesn't mean they're competent for the probably not. It shouldn't be that hard to learn and teach. And then number two, like the benefits that you get from the Olympic lifts, like everyone's always arguing against them, but I think they far outweigh. Like once you teach somebody to learn how to clean, like there's nothing better than an explosive clean.
Yeah.
Like I think in terms of
fun.
like force and power output, yeah.
I would say kind of my 2 cents thrown into the mix there would be powerlifting, not in a bad way, but it is like kind of boring in the sense. So it's like if you're someone that's like like can kind of zone out, just focus on the training, stick to a training plan, like kind of same thing every week, super consistent. Like it's boring on paper, but it's not necessarily boring in practice because you're getting stronger, and like it's an awesome feeling to like look back, like, you know, in the past several months, like how much progress you've made, or in a year, or in several years. So there's nothing necessarily boring about it, but like on paper the process is kind of boring.
It's a little
Whereas
more
like
black and white.
it's like it's black and white, whereas like Olympic lifting to that point is like more colorful. There's a lot more going on. I like that. Yeah, so it's like if you're someone that is maybe enticed by a more intricate training plan, like you want, like you strive for like, or you're attracted by like the variability and like a learning process and like a challenge, like each week, like I'd say like Olympic lifting might appease to you a little bit more. But like if, you know, again, to that point, going back to powerlifting, if you're like, I don't want that much like additional variability. I want to come in, I want to train, I want to get stronger. Like that black and white powerlifting is definitely more appealing to that individual.
Yeah, Olympic lifting is kind of an art form in itself, right? So like you can compare that to like figure skating in a sense, where it's like how smooth can you know, glide across the ice? How much body control do you have? It's like almost gymnastics, where you're just watching how they control their body.
Kind of where I was, like
Yeah, it's like-
gymnastics or mixed martial arts.
Yeah,
I
like
feel you're
same
kinda-
concept, mixed
yeah.
martial art. Like there's like if you're interested in like how the body moves and articulates itself, like Olympic lifting will probably be more attractive to you. Where if you're interested in more just like raw strength and everything, like then powerlifting is going to be kind of more goated in that regard.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, if you think of it, let me know. But I honestly feel like that's a pretty good spot. We kind of touched on a lot of different points with like the differences, like who it's beneficial for, what each type of lifting style is beneficial for. Obviously, we do both at Mach 1 Barbell, and more. So if you're interested in learning more about Olympic lifting or powerlifting, or maybe even doing a little bit of both, Mach 1 Barbell is the hub for you.
I'll add it to a later episode if it comes back. You'll have to watch this one to know what I'm talking about.